Hey guys, my name is Blake, and I'm the former CEO and founder of Cladwell. Former in that we just sold our company about a month ago. And so for the past month, I've been jobless, wakeboarding and skateboarding a ton with my son, hanging out with my family, and doing some reflecting, just thinking about the lessons that I've learned over the past 7 years of running Cladwell. And so I figured before I kind of let this time go and start looking at what's next and trying to figure that out, I figured it'd probably be best just to consolidate and capture all of these learnings. And so hopefully that's helpful for you. If not, it's been super helpful for me. Who knows, maybe my kids will watch it someday and they'll learn something or something like that. Maybe I'll make them do it. But in 2013, I wrote a blog post that was talking about the top 10 lessons I learned running a startup in my first year. And so I thought that was a cool format and people liked it. So let's just continue that format. So we're gonna do that now for the remaining 6 years. So in total, I'll do 7 years, 70 lessons that I've learned along the way. Some of these are lighter and don't need a lot of explanation. Others might have a story tied to it, and so I think I'll probably share the story. Each of these, I've tried to focus on ones that I feel like I really earned with blood. I earned these lessons as opposed to just ones that maybe I read in a book or something like that. I'm gonna link below in the YouTube, I think, and then also on our Medium post, I'm gonna hyperlink to each of these lessons. So I would love if somebody wanted to listen to me or watch the entire thing, but otherwise just browse and figure out which lessons look interesting and just you can click forward to that spot. And I don't know, I hope that it helps somebody as they're maybe embarking on an entrepreneurial journey. Especially there'll be a lot more on the venture capital side because I feel like that's been kind of the vein that I've been in. But I want to be helpful, and frankly, I thought this was a good time to kind of get these learnings out there to share. What's the way to say it? I guess another part of the reason why I'm doing this is that I want to kind of broaden my network a little bit as I'm trying to figure out what's next. I'm kind of exploring whether I do another startup or work with other people, and I thought, what better way than to start by giving and to share something that I've learned so far. So it's not entirely selfless, it's a little selfish too, but I think that's okay. Okay, let's jump into it. Starting in 2013, what happened in 2013? 2013 was the first year that we had Cladwell, and so we, meaning Tim Brunk, Chris Merchick, and I, raised an angel round of funding from mostly friends and family, and then I think later in that year it was Queen City Angels, I believe. And we launched our first iteration of our product. And if you look at the picture on the Medium post, I had a lot of hair then, and I don't anymore, unfortunately. But, so what did I learn? Number one, nobody ever gets any money from big public pitches. It's a little bit all-inclusive as far as my description, but in my experience, I've not met anybody who's actually got a check from a big pitch that happened in public. Even at the end of a demo day at an accelerator, typically nobody's walking around with checks. The way it really works is that you can meet people there, and you can make friends there. And you should definitely do big public pitches, but don't expect that to be how you actually generate, don't use that as your process for raising money. A good fundraising process is actually going to be done through meetings and coffee shops and running a lot of meetings side by side. A big pitch is a great way to get maybe some PR and maybe even some new hires, but it's not going to be the way you get funding. Number two, everyone will give you advice, but pick a couple mentors and stick with them. This one's key. Everybody, I don't know, it feels good to give advice. It makes you feel like you're smart. You feel like you're being helpful to people. It's really nice. But the truth is that when you're doing a startup, you don't need tons of advice. You need really good advice from a few people. And so my recommendation is pick experts that maybe fill in your gaps and maybe represent the industry that you're in, and give them advisor equity, pay them if you have to, but just stick with those people, and those people can guide you along a long time. Realistically, after maybe 2 years of advice, you probably wear through their content, and so at that point, either they need to be helping you as far as working in an industry, or you should just move on to another mentor. But I think that we could have done that more instead of we did a really wide net of meeting with a lot of different people. It wasn't that helpful. Number three, talk to your customers constantly. Call them. It's scary, and I don't think we did enough of this. Especially even later on, I didn't do a great job at this, but it's something that I think really makes a difference. Physically sit down with your customers and ask them to use your app in front of you or use your company in front of you. Call these people, ask them about their lives. It's all feeding your intuition. And as humans, we're really, really good at collecting wide amounts of data and synthesizing it into insight. And so really, you just want to make sure you're collecting the right data, and the best data you can get is relationships with your customers. All right, what was the next one? Don't neglect friends, vacation, family, church. Don't forget to live. This one's super important. Our first year, I got really, really stressed. My wife and I both lost like 15, 20 pounds out of just stress weight. And I ended up getting insomnia my first year, and I had a lot of trouble sleeping because I was really worried about money. We were living out of savings. We were paying ourselves $0. Me, Tim Brunk, Chris Merchant, we were all just living out of savings. And then we ended up paying for someone else out of our savings. So our savings is just going down. And it was just really hard to ever take a break. It was really hard to rest or even consider going on a vacation because it was a really intense time. We needed to raise the money. We needed to launch the product. And so we kind of just neglected resting, and things weren't going really well. And eventually, Chris, my co-founder, and Tim, my other co-founder, pulled me aside and said, Blake, you have to take a break. And so I went on a 3-day weekend to my parents' lake house in Tennessee. And while we were there, that's when we got our first commit of dollars, our first investment dollars. And that happened while I was on vacation. And it kind of like felt like one of those points that kind of seared into my memory of the importance of like, it's a trap. This idea of like delaying living now. I mean, obviously we have to save money, and obviously we have to like change our habits if we're going to do a startup. But to completely forego living in hopes of a better life in the future is a trap, and don't do it. You have to live a good life now, and it can be a hard life, but it needs to be a good life now. Number 5, the best brands come from the creator's personality, and then they come from strategy. So what I mean by that is when we started, we thought, what would a cool fashion brand look like? And we made a brand that looked like that. And it was cool, I guess, but it wasn't in any way me. It was like this kind of cool guy who was like really tough and staring off in the distance. And, you know, like, it was just like, it made no sense for a fashion brand like ours so it'd be coming from me or Tim or from Chris, because we weren't those guys as much as we wish that maybe we were. And so we ended up pivoting our brand pretty heavily and rebranding as a whole process, paying somebody to help guide us through that. And it was amazing. What came out the second iteration was much more focused on what do we actually believe, who are we actually, and how do we make a fashion brand that sounds like us. And that's really helpful in 2 ways. One, it resonates with people way better because they believe you that this is something true. And 2, it makes you write faster because you're writing in your own voice as opposed to writing in this voice that you have to imagine being someone else. So your intuition's better from a brand standpoint. And we had a lot more luck on that. So I would highly recommend just the process of branding is in the early stage is to start based on who you are, what you believe, and just translate that into a visual and written form. That's it. Later on in a company, you can't do that because the company's too big, right? And so there's too many people. So then you have to kind of say, okay, well, this is who we are, and you kind of define it and put these frameworks around it. But at the beginning, just let it be who you actually are. Number 6, never use volunteers on your startup. We did this because people were so excited to be able to help us out. And so literally we had people who like would daily help us or would work with us and like would volunteer their time. But the problem with that is there's no transaction taking place, right? Like they're just giving you their time. And you're not paying them anything. I guess they're getting experience, but in reality, that's not an economic relationship. It's some other type of relationship. So it's leaning on friendship or it's leaning on hope or the future or something like that. And it's not a good dynamic. People sometimes end up feeling taken advantage of. So I would recommend don't use volunteers. Number 7, what's the longest you can imagine that it'll take to raise money? Double it. And how much money do you need? Double that. Yeah, this is true forever. It's unreal. How many people are like, we're just trying to raise $100,000 and then we'll be able to get to profitability. Maybe that's true for you, but it is 99% of the time not true. You've got to be really, really conservative in how much you raise and how long it's going to take. And that's the problem. I think that's the problem with entrepreneurs is that we're optimistic. And we expect everything to go well, and our plan A is like the perfect scenario. And this is an area where it bites us in the butt, and you end up losing leverage in the fundraising process because you thought everything was going to go perfectly. It doesn't, and then you find yourself having to accept things that maybe you weren't your first choice. So maybe find a friend, find somebody who can help you visualize a worst case scenario, and then maybe plan for that so that you feel like you can confidently go in. And also, that'll help you stay honest and true to your values, even if the going gets tough. Next, celebrate early and often. This is a big one. In the fundraising process, you get like a commit, and then later comes a signed document, and then comes a check. And so the question is, when do you celebrate in that process? And what we found is we were like, well, I'm not going to celebrate until I get the check, or I'm not going to celebrate until I get the signed document. Or I'm not. It's like what ends up happening is you end up delaying until it's old news, and then we never celebrate it. And so we started a new rule in 2013, which was every milestone you get, when somebody says yes, go celebrate. When somebody says, gets the signature, celebrate that. When you get the check, celebrate that. Just celebrate every time. That's a way better way to do it, because otherwise you'll just never celebrate. Number 9, don't network or promote yourself. Just make friends. People can sniff it out if you're trying to, I don't know, use other people. The best relationships I've ever built at like a networking style event was, I think it was around 2013 or 14. I went to New York and I had a meeting with a retailer, and when it let up, I'd already missed my flight because we had to reschedule. So I'd missed my flight for that evening. So I was like at 4:30, and I'm like, what am I going to do in New York tonight? And at the time I didn't have any friends there. And so I just went on meetup.com, and I found a startup meetup like within a half mile of where I was. And so I go to that startup meetup, and I was like, I don't stand to get anything from these people. I'm not in this community. At the time, I don't think we were raising money. And so I was like, I'm just going to go meet people and have fun. And like, think of it like a college party. And so I had a blast, and I met like so many interesting people, and you could see the fear and the tension in all these different people as they're working the room. And then I just felt like totally free to like, oh, you're interested in this and you're interested in this, and like, let me introduce you. And like, I felt like I just came to serve and to be helpful. And I made so many relationships that actually ended up turning into business opportunities later, just because I wasn't trying to, because I was just like attending a college party. I don't know, it was kind of interesting. So I try to get myself, even when it's a high intensity time, I try to get myself into that mental state whenever I go to networking events, rather than in that state of like filtering people to find the best opportunity. That people feel that when they get filtered, and that's just not the type of person you want to be, or no, it's the type of person I want to be. All right, number 10, have grace with your teammates. Man, working with people's hard. Like really hard, and people are not very good at working together. It's actually a miracle that anything ever gets done ever, that we're not murdering each other constantly, because I mean, half of millennia ago we were. And so you have to have grace with people. People make mistakes, people say things that they regret, and so you have to let this stuff slide, and you have to give grace to people, and they'll give grace to you, because in the end of the day, we're all humans and we all make mistakes, and we're all trying to figure stuff out. That was my top 10 for 2013, and that one was actually in the article, so it's probably the least interesting of these. Let's hit up 2014. By the way, these are my notes. It's really just the list, and then I put like, if I knew I had a story, I'd write it down. But for the most part, I'm just trying to, I don't know, actually react to these as I go through, as opposed to be really scripted. Okay, 2014. What happened in 2014? We expanded the features on the website big time. Really, that was the first time that Cloudwell became what we wanted it to be in some way, shape, or form. We hired a team. We hired several engineers that year. We added incremental revenue streams, and those revenue streams failed miserably. And we raised an additional angel round that year. Lesson number 1, 10 extra minutes of extra time spent. That's worded weird. 10 extra minutes of extra time spent planning could save you more than $100,000. Think before you build. This is a big regret. We spent 3.5 months integrating this feature on Cladwell that year. And we're like, man, the numbers are showing that if this works, then we're gonna like quadruple our revenue. And it was like, we ended up raising money based on the hope of that. And it was all based on this technology that if you click on an affiliate link, you can actually purchase it on our site. So essentially it was a universal shopping cart. And the idea was great, and so I tested it out and bought a pair of Red Wing boots, I remember, on another website, just to test it out to see if it worked. And the Red Wing boots were delivered to my house, and I got them, and I remember returning them to Nordstrom and being a little bit of a hookup because they were a little confused on it, but I was like, hey, at least I got the things. I think this technology works. Fast forward 3.5 months later, we launch it. And about 3 out of 5 times that you tried to order something, it would break and it wouldn't work. So the majority of the time. And if I had literally tested that button 3.5 months earlier and actually just ordered 5 things instead of ordering 1 thing, I would have found that out. And we wouldn't have spent over $100,000 building that feature and betting our company on that. And there was another service provider who could have done it, and theirs was far better. But again, I only ordered 1 with each, and they worked with both. So literally, if I had just ordered 5 products instead of 1 product, it would have saved us $100,000. And this is it's an important lesson here, that the planning process feels really inefficient, especially to people like us if we're activators. You want to get moving, right? But if you can slow down and really in a detailed way, or get somebody to help you who's really detailed, actually check how robust this thing is and how good your plan is beforehand, it'll make you move faster and you'll be able to save a ton of money, and it's a ton of disappointment and pain. So do that, please. Don't repeat my mistakes. Number 2 from 2014. If you don't love the new hire now, you never will. Not trying to be super specific about this year. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but the truth is that you are most excited. This is true of like any purchase. If you're buying jeans, if you don't love the pair of jeans on the day you got them, you're never gonna love them. It goes down. Our little monkey brains like novelty, right? And we really like the idea of new things. And so if you don't love something on day 1, it's only going downhill from there. So you should feel ecstatic about every new hire. And if you don't feel ecstatic, don't make the hire, because it's only gonna go downhill from there. Number 3, 2014, number 3, your office space / subleases really make a big difference for the team. This is true. The environment in which you work matters. You spend a lot of time in there. It's like shoes, mattresses, and offices. Those things matter a lot because you spend most of your life in one or all of those things. So invest in what it looks like and make sure that the people that you're around are good for your vibe. Number 4, investors want to be part of a moment when you are raising money. That's why they call it momentum. That was a big learning. I remember this year we raised like a bridge round. It's like an extension from the angel round. And I remember concluding the slide with the fact that we had got an acquisition inquiry. And I just said, whoa, things are heating up. We just got an unprompted acquisition inquiry. Things are moving now. It's time to invest. And I remember the speed at which we closed that deal in that round was so much faster than I didn't have that kind of moment, that trigger. It doesn't have to be, it can be a lot of different things. It can be a new hire. It can be a pop in your results. It can be something external like a partnership or acquisition inquiry. But some moment makes people excited. And so make sure that's in your pitch whenever you're raising money, and you'll close way faster. Number 5, equity does nothing to actually motivate people. This was a disappointing lesson. We wanted to get people really excited. And I remember this was Tim and I wanted everybody to feel bought in as we did. We just thought about it all day and all night. And so we're like, how do we get our team as invested in us? We're like, oh, maybe we should give away some of our equity. So we actually took equity from ourselves and we distributed it to the team and doubled how much equity they got in the company in hopes that they would be more excited and bring more to it. And nothing changed. The people who already were working really, really hard continue to work really, really hard. The people who were maybe not working as hard continued to work exactly the same amount, because I think there's a fundamental truth about the way people think about work and the type of workers we have, is that you're either somebody who takes ownership or you're not. And a person who takes ownership doesn't have to be given ownership in order to take ownership. They just believe, and so they continue working hard. So the way you should dole out equity is based on norms within your industry, and it should be based on 4-year vesting, 1-year cliff, just what's normal. And don't let that, if that's the thing you're leaning on to motivate people, you're in trouble, because in the end, it often isn't worth nearly as much as people hope. All right, number 6, technical people like to rewrite everything. Don't let them do it. I've yet to hire a CTO. We've hired several CTOs. I've yet to hire a CTO that doesn't want to rewrite everything in the language that they prefer. Nothing wrong with that. It makes sense. They'll move faster. It is messy to inherit some legacy software, but don't do it. It's a waste. It will not impact the business. So don't do it. Number 7, A formal warning is a helpful tool when you're trying to correct an employee's recurring bad behavior. That was a new tool that I just didn't have until that year. I remember had an issue with somebody who was showing up late all the time, and I was like, what do you do? I don't want to fire him. He was amazing. He's brilliant. But he just couldn't seem to show up on time. And it was really dragging down the team because we had this meeting and he was like way late. So I wrote out on a piece of paper, just like, this is your formal warning. Do not do this again or there will be more consequences. And like that, it was fixed. It's super interesting. It has a certain level of seriousness that a verbal warning doesn't make. And they have to sign the saying, I received this warning. Yeah, it makes a big difference. I've heard the statistic is, I think it's like 1 in 3 people who receive a verbal warning will continue to be employed. While 2 out of 3, it's like that's the first step to getting fired. But it's a good step to take if you're feeling stuck. All right, number 8, being cheesy is part of being the leader. Go above and beyond and recognizing great work. Yeah, I don't know if you feel this. I think sometimes seeing somebody do something good and you're like, hey, great job on that. That was awesome. I feel a little patronizing to that person. Like, I don't really want other people to patronize me. And so sometimes it feels patronizing to me I don't know, to be that guy. It feels cheesy to like say, great job, everyone, or something like that. And so at first I didn't do that very much. And then I realized that if I don't do that, nobody else will do that. And it's really important that somebody be encouraging to everyone. So part of the mantle of being the leader of anything is to put on your cheese ball hat and just say like, I'm gonna be the goofy dad and be like, great job, everybody. Let's celebrate this thing, right? That was amazing. You're incredible. Things like that make a big difference for people, and somebody has to say that stuff. So say it. All right. Number 9, the team loves it when the CEO brings a big, scary problem to them. You don't have to be the hero and solve it. This is weird because when you start your career as a contributor, it feels like you are successful if you solve problems for people, right? Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions, right? That's why I remember having a boss who told me that. I think I'm in the sun right now. I don't want to, let me move this over a little bit. How's that? Okay. The team loves it when the CEO brings a big scary problem to the team. Yeah, you get promoted based on your ability to solve problems. But a good manager or CEO actually doesn't do that. Instead, they clarify problems, bring them to the team and say, what are we gonna do? And then let the team work on it. And what you'll find is that the team will do way better at solving the problem than you will because you hired a really good team. I didn't realize that, and I remember the meeting that we did it for the first time. I actually needed help. I just didn't know what the solution was. So I just mapped out, here's where we are. These are the biggest systemic risks facing the business. What should we do? And I remember the team just like turned on and they like started immediately discussing, and it was like the most exciting meeting we've had in a long time. So that's a big deal. Do that rather than feel like don't feel bad if you don't have the answer to the problem or you're not bringing the answer to the problem. Then number 10, the moment a work relationship isn't working, address it. Don't wait. It won't get better. This is a tough one. I want to be really honoring. So the first co-founder that I had was Tim Brunk, and he's an incredible man who I admire immensely. And he's gone on and he's created multiple startups that have been incredibly successful. I cannot say more about how much I admire him as a person. We started Cladwell as 50-50 partners with the vision that we were not going to be like one person was going to be over the other person was going to be over the other, but we were going to be like co-equal partners. And we started out that way, and what we found was that that was really difficult. It slowed down our decision-making abilities because we were constantly trying to decide who does what and who doesn't do what, and the relationship from a work standpoint ended up not being what we hoped it would be for either of us. He didn't sign up to work for me. I didn't sign up to work for him. And so we found ourselves in kind of this weird, we both loved the company. We both raised money from our friends and family and committed that we were going to go after this thing, but it wasn't working. And I'd be curious to hear if he says it. I feel like we let it go too long, like really long. And that created relational damage for each other, created a lot of anxiety for both of us, and it just wasn't a good thing. And so it's scary to bring something up and say like, hey, this isn't working. Pretty obviously this is not working. What are we going to do about it? Because I don't want to be in a relationship that's not working. It's a scary conversation to have, but having that conversation early is way better for the relationship in the long run. If you really care about that person, you should have the conversation early, and fight for it to be good or fight for it to end. That's how I learned that lesson, through not having it early instead of letting it drag out for a really long time. And I think that caused a lot of pain for both of us, and it wasn't smart. Since then though, I mean, time heals things. Time has amazing powers. And so it's really healed that relationship in many ways. And I feel like, I don't know, we feel a lot of, I think, affection for each other and respect for each other now. But at the time, that was really difficult. So address those problems early and just try to be honest with yourself. If it's not working, like, you'll be okay, but you got to figure it out. All right. That was 2014. Not bad. Okay, 2015. What happened in 2015? 2015, we created a YouTube channel for customer acquisition that still is cranking. We ran out of money that year. We pivoted our business model and our customer in 1 year. We went from free to subscription and from men to women. And then we bet the business on one partnership with Macy's, and we got it. And that felt good. All right, so 2015, lesson number 1, never, ever raise money from 1 or 2 investors. You need to have a big pipeline if you want leverage. It's the only leverage you have as an entrepreneur, is you have to be pitching a lot of people at the same time. And I didn't do that. In January of 2015, we had 2 parties going, and we were trying to play them off of each other, and then one backed out, and suddenly we lost all the leverage, and we were underfunded, and that almost killed the company. And yeah, I didn't know that rule. I didn't know that you needed to be pitching not 1 or 2, but like 50 or 60 people. And that's how you create leverage and actually can move something to a favorable deal for your company. That sucked. All right, number 2, when backed into a corner, ask the question, okay, if we're gonna die, what would we be proud to die trying? And I know that's weird phrasing, but this is the big thing, is we needed to close this deal with Macy's. In order to, our funding was contingent on us closing this deal. And so I remember flying out, well actually before I flew out, I remember talking with my co-founder Chris and saying like, how are we gonna present Cladwell's capabilities to this big retailer? And I was like, we could go the route of what we really believe, which is really fairly radical to these executives, or we could go the route of what we think they want. And we thought, well, maybe we have a better chance of getting it if we pitch what we think they want. But what we really believed, it could make a big difference on them. And we actually thought this is what would be best. And specifically that had to do with fast fashion, and talking about how fast fashion is really bad for the environment, and it's bad for human beings who are making the clothes, and it's bad for our souls, and that Macy's should not embrace fast fashion. Instead, should double down on quality basics as a strategy. And so that was, we were trying to figure out, like, how do we want to pitch this thing? And so I remember Chris saying, if we're gonna die, we might as well die saying the truth and what we think is true. And I was like, okay. And so we wrote exactly what we believed, and to the CMO of Macy's said, this is what you need to be doing, and it's radically different than what you're doing right now. And it was one of those things where it kind of was a little scary doing it, but it felt, I don't know, when we did it, I felt so resigned to, like, that I'm doing the right thing. And so we made the pitch, and we got it. But even if we hadn't, I think I would have been at peace, because it was the right thing to do. And later in the life of Cladwell, I didn't do this very well. I instead pitched what I thought people wanted to hear, and I regret that. But at the time, I felt really proud of that moment. It's one of my most proud moments at Cladwell, was when we looked death in the face and did what we thought was right. And in the future, I want to do more of that. All right, number 3, sometimes anxiety and sadness can be resolved by addressing your physical habits: exercising, eating, sleeping, going outside, spending time with friends, etc. This is a big deal. I got real down in 2015. I got really down. There's some external factors, the underfunding of the company, some family stuff that was happening. It was like a tough time. But I read a book called The Depression Cure that maps out like how to be a good human being, not like a moral human being, but just like a human being that takes care of yourself. And it gave these different habits around those things, like exercise and eating and sleeping and going outside. And I implemented it, and it changed my life. So it's called The Depression Cure. Read that book. I'm not getting anything for this. I read it every February because I get sad in February for the most part. So I would highly recommend read that, and do that before you take any medication. Do that before, even before you go see a therapist. Like, so much of life, it's like little kids. I've got a bunch of little children, and if they don't, first have them go to the bathroom, make sure they're sleeping, and make sure they're eating well and getting enough exercise. And if all that's true, then we have a discipline problem. But most of the time, that's the core of the discipline problem. And the same is true for big people too. All right, number 4, what you watch on TV shapes your mood. Who knew? No, but it's a big deal. What you watch, this intake of content is a huge deal. And what I found is 2 things. One, what I'm watching tends to be related to what I'm missing in my life at that time. So if I'm missing adventure, I tend to watch more adventurous things. If I'm missing relational harmony, I watch more like dramas or relationship type things. And so it's like what you're missing will shape what you choose, and then what you choose will shape what you think. And this kind of weird loop that happens with television. So be careful and leverage it. Like, if you're like, well, this is how I want to be thinking, find shows that help you think that way and do it. It can work for good or for bad, but it's just fact. All right, number 5, the joy of business success dwindles pretty fast. The joy of having a child is way better. This is cool. I don't know if this is helpful for anybody other than like my children or something, but when we closed that deal with Macy's in 2015, I remember getting the email. I was in downtown San Francisco, down by the pier, and I remember getting the email that says, like, you've got it, or something like that. And I did like a really cheesy, like, pursuit of happiness, like fist pump, like, yes, because the company was going to live. We were going to survive. We were going to make it. And we had like less than a month of cash flow left, and we were betting it all on this one thing, and we did it. And it was like a real yelp. I was like, yes, like that. And I like walked for a second, and then I'm like, okay, what do we have to do? And then I immediately got back into like execution mode, and I just kept on thinking, what are the next steps? And then I kind of paused for a second. I was like, whoa, that's what success feels like. It's a big pop, and then right back into hard work. And I remember at the time thinking, selling my company will probably feel like this, maybe a little bit better, but then it's immediately to get back into logistics. And so I was like, I shouldn't make selling the company or going public or big success, getting rich, whatever. Don't make that the target, because it's like it pops up in terms of excitement and then it dwindles really fast. And I compared that with that same summer, my daughter Penelope was born, my 3rd daughter. And each time a child is born, it's unreal. If you haven't experienced it, please do. Please do. It's amazing. But when she was born, it was like this high of like, this is incredible, this human life, this person, who am I getting to know? Like, who's this person? And my responsibility is coming with it. So it's a mixture of like fear and excitement and like joy. And really that sets like a new baseline. And you don't go down from there. You actually just kind of stay up. And so with each of my children, 4 children, 5th on the way, it's like my baseline keeps on rising. And that's completely different than the spike and the drop. So know that. Family success is way better. And don't confuse those. All right. Sorry, there's a train going by. I don't know how loud that is for you. All right. Don't work in a different room than your team. You might focus more, but they need your passion. This is the year that I literally started working in a closet with no windows, facing the wall with my back to the door. And I was like, I'm so focused right now. It's amazing. Like, and then finally I'm letting them be alone because I didn't be distracting and distracted. I didn't distract the people around me. And so I thought, this is amazing. Productivity is going to go through the roof. This is going to be amazing. And it didn't. In fact, everybody kind of got tired, and we kind of stopped communicating as well, and we kind of lost energy. And I realized that, like, at least my role on the team, and I think for most CEOs, you need to be in the room with your team. And maybe you're being distracting is actually really helpful to them because it's giving them energy. It's giving them excitement, even if they act irritated. So be in the same room. That's important. Where am I? That was a different room. Okay, number 7, in 2015. Giving responsibility is like gasoline. A little bit can accelerate someone's career, but too much of it will make an irreversible mess. This is true for my career before Cladwell. I had a boss, Jim Bechtold, who was just incredible, and he just gave me more and more responsibility. And he always was like, all right, Blake, you can do this, take it and run with it. And it felt like it was just like drinking from a fire hose. Like I learned so much, and I felt like I grew so much through that process. So I was like, I want to be a boss like that. And so I was, in this year, I remember specifically, I was giving a lot of responsibility, like jumping titles and things like that, just saying like, you can do this, go get them. And in one instance, the person that I gave responsibility to didn't do well, actually really failed pretty abysmally, and we had to take away the role. And that person never really recovered from that. And in that organization, obviously recovered personally, but didn't recover in that organization ever from that. And I realized like, oh, I ruined it by giving too much too fast. And so this is the risk and the job of the manager, is like you have to dole out enough responsibility to keep them engaged and excited and growing, but know that there are limits. And if you give too much, you can crush them or make them explode. All right, number 8, wherever possible, get your team to experience what your digital product delivers physically. This is the year that we got really into this. And like I brought my entire closet, because we're a fashion app, brought my entire closet into the office, and I categorized and took pictures of all my clothes and did like a closet clean out in front of everybody. And then we went to my designer's house and we literally cleaned out her entire closet, me and my co-founder, and spent like 8 hours, and it like changed everything for us. Like it was incredible. Expose your team to the physical, even if you have a digital product, find a physical representation of it and get people in it, feeling it. And it again, we're good at synthesizing information. We've got to just immerse ourselves in the experience. Great. All right. Number 9, hire fantastic people. Literally nothing is more important for a company than this. 100%. This is the year we hired my last co-founder, Erin Flynn. And she is just head and shoulders above everything we had seen before up until that point. Her drive was incredible. She's incredibly hardworking. She was smart, and she resonated at a deep belief level with the company. And what we saw from her in that first year, but then also in every year since then, was just incredible. And what actually ended up happening is it planted the seed of several people leaving the company, because her level of dedication and work raised the bar on everyone. So suddenly everyone else was underperforming, and they either had to level up or they dropped out. And so she single-handedly changed the culture of our company just due to who she was. And that's how one hire can do that. And I'm so glad that she and I met. It was so weird. Like we weren't looking to hire somebody. Like literally we got introduced from a friend, and then it worked out. But if I could have only one thing to contribute to a team as the leader, literally, if you could only have one thing to contribute, it would be to hire really great people and remove toxic people. And if you can do that, like, you're going to be okay. Yeah. All right, number 10, you have a choice. Either you can go insane or journal regularly and honestly. This is the year that I really started journaling. And I do it at least once a week on Saturdays. This was introduced to me from a friend, Jeremy Pryor, who I was having a really rough time. Again, this is that year that I got real sad. I got stuck to a point where I couldn't even process anything. And that was when I called him and I said, hey man, I can't even work right now. Like, what do I do? And he said, okay, I want you to go away. I want you to journal without any editing of yourself, just freehand, just journal until you have nothing left. And then he said, then I want you to come to my house on Sunday and I want you to read it out loud to me. So I went to his house and I read it out loud for 4 hours, and he just listened and took notes, asked a couple questions. It's like, okay, now all those feelings, I want you to cram them down and don't even address them. Go be the leader of the company, be the leader of your family. And the next Saturday, I want you to write until you have nothing left again. On Sunday, you're gonna read it out loud to me again. And he did this like 6 or 7 weekends in a row. And I think it saved our company. It's probably saved my family, could have saved me in many ways. And I'm eternally grateful for him doing that for me. And I've kept that habit since then of like, you have to write freely and honestly. Don't write like it's like a biography or like somebody's gonna pick it up someday and think that you're awesome. Write like if they pick it up someday, they'll think you're horrible. Be honest with who you are, and when you get those things out, it'll give you perspective. If you're a Christian, which I'm a Christian, journal, start with what you're feeling and then bring it to God and like process it with Him. It's immensely important. We don't know what's in our heads unless we write it out. And to not know what's in your head is a very dangerous thing. Humans are, none of us is good, and so we have to get that stuff out there and to process it. All right, that was 2015 in a wrap. Let's do 2016. 2016. What happened in 2016? This is a big year. We moved to San Francisco for 6 months. We went through the 500 Startups Accelerator. The team started building our new app while I raised a $1.5 million seed round. This was an exciting year. And it all started with number one, which is you never get anywhere new without trying something new, like joining an accelerator or going to therapy. I literally saw that quote on an Instagram post on January 1st. And it just I don't know, it was really cheesy. It was like a sunset and probably a dolphin or something like that. But it struck me at my core of oh my gosh, you never get anywhere new without trying something new. And so I was like, what have I not tried? For my emotional health, I haven't tried going to therapy. I'm going to therapy. What have I not tried for Cladwell? I haven't tried doing an accelerator. Let's go to an accelerator. And trying new things, that was a really big deal, and it made for a really great year. So try new things, do that. Number two, accelerators advertise their expertise and their connections and everything else. But really, accelerators, the number one asset they deliver is relationships with other founders. I felt like Littlefoot in the movie The Land Before Time. Do you remember that? Where all these little baby dinosaurs are separated from their parents, and then finally they go to the Great Valley and they're reunited. And so Littlefoot, the little long-necked dinosaur, finds all the other long-necked dinosaurs and finds his family. I felt like that going to 500 Startups. Where I'm I found my people. I'm a type of person apparently, and this is where they all are. And I was just through the roof excited with these people. They were incredible. And friendships that I now have in every city all over the world, because 500 Startups especially is just so great from a diversity standpoint. I met people from different backgrounds, and it was amazing, and it helped me up my game as a entrepreneur, and just exposed me to people that have changed my life. It really changed my life. I'm so thankful for going through that experience. And yes, it had a good reputation, maybe helped us raise some money, but now, that was 3 years ago, number one benefit. I'm feeling something thinking about it. I'm so thankful for those friendships. That was awesome. All right, number three. If you are building a digital product, read and follow this book. And I've hyperlinked to this book by Google Ventures called Sprint. Read the book. Do it. They've cracked the code on how to build digital products. Execute that stuff. It makes a huge difference in building a product. And it helps you we wasted so much time in the years leading up to this and saved so much time in the years after this because of this one book. These books can make a huge difference. Yeah. All right, number four. For your seed round pitch, pitch one VC for every $10,000 that you're raising. So what does that mean? If you're raising $1 million, you need to pitch 100 investors. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. 100 investors for $1 million. If you're raising $100,000, then you need to pitch at least 10 investors. That's the ratio that I found. Maybe you're better than me, or maybe you're worse than me. I don't know. But that's what I found to be true. So literally, we raised 1.5 million and we pitched 155 VCs in 6 weeks. So do that. That leads to number five, which is when fundraising, move your VCs through the same stage of fundraising. So you want to be pitching all of them at the same time, and then you want to be in partner meeting all at the same time. You want to be in due diligence all at the same time. So it's you have, somebody described it to me as having a bunch of horses lined up, and you want to move them all at the same time. Don't let one get ahead. And if one gets too far ahead, actually back them off and make sure that they don't run ahead of everybody. And what that does is that it signals to everybody that they're not the only ones that you're talking to. And so that means that you have a little bit of leverage. And as a startup, you need that. Otherwise, you'll get really bad terms, or people will just say, wait and wait and wait and wait. And you can't afford to do that. Yeah. And so we literally, it was in August, September, pitched 150 VCs, 155 VCs in a 6-week period. And I got 144 no's in a row. And it was exhausting and very difficult. But then 145, pitch number 145 said yes. And then number 146, 47, 48, 49, 50, and we were done. That was it. So that first dollar in's the toughest one. and you just got to pitch as many as possible because you get smarter as you go too. I have a lot more to say on that. If you ever want to talk about fundraising, let's talk about fundraising. I feel like I've learned a lot on that specifically. All right, number 6. If you want to raise money, just don't give up. That is kind of what it came down to for us. Like I said, we pitched a lot of people, and I was ready to give up at about 100 pitches deep, and I had so many people say no, and some people said some really nasty things. Oh man, some really nasty things, or just like discouraging things. Even like people who were close to me, like, oh, that was the worst. But just keep going. I remember those days. I would wake up, read my Bible, go take a shower, cold shower, and I'd slap myself in the face when I took a cold shower every morning. I'd say, I do hard things, I do hard things, I do hard things out loud. And then I'd go pitch all morning. I'd come back at 1 PM. I'd jump in the shower again, take a cold shower, and slap myself. I do hard things, I do hard things. And I'd get back out there and pitch some more. And I was doing, on average, 6 or 7 pitches a day. It was brutal, but I don't know, afterwards, now thinking about it, I feel kind of good about it. I like telling this story because I'm really proud of it. We did something hard, and we did it. We didn't give up. So don't give up. Number 7, your family and children are not a liability or a distraction. Your family is your power. We moved my whole family. At the time we had 3 kids, 4 and under, and number 4 on the way. When we moved out to San Francisco for 6 months, we moved my whole family out there. And it was hard. It was really chaotic and crazy. And I think I was the only one who brought my family along, or maybe had a family and brought my family along in the whole cohort. And I'm so glad I did it, because every night when I was done pitching, I'd come home, I'd have a glass of wine or a beer, sit with my family, play with my kids, talk to my wife, and that was the fuel that got me through it all. That I had my people, and I've never felt more in love with my people than I did during that time. It like upped the level, like the urgency and the desperation of the time upped my level of love, and then that kind of fueled me to go out and work harder. Responsibility is good for people, especially for us fathers. It's really good for us to have that responsibility. It drives us to do better. I'm kind of a lazy bum by nature, but I think my kids are kind of, like, wife and children are what made me work harder. So have kids, embrace responsibility early. It'll change your life and it'll make you a better person. That being said, I'm not that great of a person. I feel like that sounded a little conceited. I started pretty low, but I feel like I've improved a lot because of my family. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say that I'm better because I had kids, but I'm better than I was because I had kids. Hope that makes sense. All right. Number 8, firing someone should take 10 minutes. Focus on the logistics and give them the dignity of hating you for a while. Somebody instructed me on this, and that was really helpful. Firing people should be really short and sweet. Literally, it's a 10-minute meeting. You start it off with, hey, I've got some bad news, unfortunately. Today's your last day. So we're going to be giving you this much severance, this much time. I'd be happy to write a review about this different thing. That's it. Don't drag it out. Don't try to convince them that you're right or show them reasoning and everything like that. You've made your decision, and it's time. And let them hate you. Be the jerk. It's okay. Like, don't be a jerk, but let them think you're the bad guy. Don't try to be a good guy. Preserve the dignity of them thinking that you're just a total doofus. And if you do that well, a year later, they may come back and thank you. They may say that they still want to be friends with you. You may work together again in the future. But that's the way to do it. Don't drag it out. I did that poorly before, but this year, I feel like I did that well, and I was really happy about that. All right. Number 9, if you want to save $90,000 in legal fees from day one, create a C Corp and set up the cap table on Carta. We didn't do that. We made an LLC, and we had 4 or 5 tranches of convertible notes, all with different caps and different stakeholders, and we literally spent $90,000 in legal fees, and that was with a discount. Where Dave Wilbrand, best lawyer in Cincinnati by far, gave us a massive discount, and like we still oh my gosh, it was a massive mess. So I would just recommend day one, C Corp, and set the cap table up on Carta. Do that. All right, number 10, leaving your team alone while you raise money is dangerous, and it causes them damage. I left my team for 2.5 months that year, and then 2 years later, I left my team again for 2.5 months while I was raising money. I'm conflicted on this because sometimes you need to be on the ground in the place that you are, and we're in Cincinnati, Ohio, and so I couldn't be in San Francisco and be here at the same time. But it is a major cost. It's a major cost to your team. Your hearts get separated. You stop giving each other the benefit of a doubt. You lose the why of what you're focused on, and you lose the reason of what's the season that we're in and that sort of thing. And it causes a lot of damage that you have to repair when you come back. And sometimes it can get away from you. So that's true, but also you need to be there physically. And it's a balance to try to figure out. I think probably in retrospect, I would say just do like 10 days in San Francisco or LA if you're raising money, or New York. Do 10 days and then come back for a week. And then do 10 days and then come back for a week. And do it in a rhythm like that rather than doing just moving away and not coming back. That was a damage, and that was not good for anybody. So where are we? 2017. What happened in 2017, Blake? In 2017, we tripled the team. We launched our new app. We spent a lot of time on product and scaled marketing at the end of the year. That was a big year. A lot of stuff happening in 2017. So, number one, this is really interesting. The logistics of the product launch can actually make or break the product launch. Let me clarify. It's the logistics, not necessarily like the quality of what you're doing or the features that are included, or the marketing or the press, or like there's all these other things that go into it. But the logistics are a big deal, which is like, how does somebody enter their credit card? When do they enter in their email? How do they transfer their email from one thing to another? And we saw that year, I think we saw a 25% decrease in MRR because of the transition from our old product to our new product. And I think we could have avoided it if we just met and talked through the logistics a little bit more, and maybe developed a little bit more on that. That was unfortunate. It really it was a punch to the stomach. So focus on those logistics. I think you're probably catching a common theme here, that sometimes I leap before I look. And so that's an important one. That was a big lesson for me. Number 2 from 2017, as the leader, never, ever do something that you disagree with. Be open to being convinced, but if you aren't convinced, do not go along to protect people's enthusiasm or to protect their feelings. You are guaranteeing failure. I want to be clear on this. It could sound kind of controlling or kind of weird, but there's this thing is that whenever you're doing anything hard, which a startup's hard, the leader has to be 100% believing in this thing. Like, you have to believe in it ridiculously. And also, sometimes what you believe is different than what your team believes. So whose belief do you go with? And the answer is you have to go with the belief of the leader, because the leader has to believe in order to provide the momentum and to clear out the barriers in order to actually accomplish it. And for me, I'm a pretty agreeable person, and so I don't like to disagree with people. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe your idea is good. I'm not convinced, but let's give it a shot. That is guaranteeing failure. Not because their idea is a bad idea. Their idea may be superior to your idea. But the problem is if you're not convinced, you're not going to clear out the barriers well enough. You're not going to force focus well enough. And so the result is you're actually planting the seed for failure in the choice. So don't go along with stuff unless you really believe in it. And that's the duty of the leader, is to do what you believe and enact what you think is best. And to be open to being wrong and open to being convinced. But be honest, if you are convinced, change. If you aren't convinced, don't. And I really regret that. I feel like you can go with the wrong idea, but if you have conviction, it could work out. But if you go with the right idea without conviction, it won't. And so it's not about right or wrong. It's about, like, you have to have the conviction to do it. And I didn't do that. I gave up on a couple things in 2017 that I think really planted the seed for some major failures. And that's on me. That's not on anybody else. And in some ways, that's probably one of my biggest lessons from running Cloudwell. Number 3, new hires will be a threat to old employees. Don't indulge this fear. Just move ahead. Everybody's worried about, like, what's gonna happen to my job? When you're bringing in new people, am I going to be above them, below them, beside them? I've had more experience. How much are they getting paid? All that sort of stuff. It's a threat. Just don't get in that conversation. Just say, hey, I care about you. I'm gonna work hard. You'll do well. But don't indulge that stuff. it's a distraction and a waste, and even indulging it makes it more of a threat, not less. If that makes sense. Okay, number 4, an intern will affect your culture just as much as any other employee. Culture is shaped by humans. It is not shaped by the seniority of the humans. So if you have a room of people, it doesn't matter what their titles are, each person in that room has an equal influence on the culture. So you might hire, like we did, like 3 or 4 interns, kind of like lackadaisically, because it's just an intern, it's gonna be a couple months, but it fundamentally shifts the culture of your team. So be really careful. And yeah, like you don't want to just have all the same type of person, but you want to really consider what type of person you do get. So, all right. Number 5, if an employee is having personal problems, clearly communicate what you expect and don't bend. This is really hard for me because I'm on a spectrum. I'm overly empathetic probably, and I'm learning to be less agreeable and more disagreeable because I think that's what you have to be an adult and a parent. But if an employee is having personal problems, that first off, all employees will have personal problems pretty much at all times. Like this is just life. Life is problems. So what you have to do is just really clearly communicate. This is what I expect from you, and I need you to deliver on this during this time. And don't try to solve their problems for them. That's what their friends and their family are for. But you do need to just be really clear, and don't, out of empathy, don't give too much rope, because it plants the seed for bitterness in your heart, or it gets you to a spot where you start to feel like you're giving a lot. And whenever you start to feel like you're giving, you expect there's some little tally in your brain that starts to be like, well, I should get more at some point. And that's not fair to anybody in a relationship. So, yeah, this is a tough one, but do that. All right, number 6, if you don't have product market fit, immediately stop working on incremental features and improvements. Obsess over the systemic problem. Probably there's a handful of people on the team who see the systemic problem, and there's probably a handful of people who don't. Don't finish things. Focus on the systemic problems and solve them. And it's hard because people want to see things finished from just a morale standpoint. And this is why before product market fit, you can't have more than 6 people on your team. It's too disappointing. And you'll receive too much negative feedback, and there's too much change. You need to be able to have 6 people or fewer so that you can all hang on tight to each other and weather the storm of trying to find product market fit, because it's disappointing a lot of people, it's changing things in a lot of people, it's breaking lots of eggs, but so you have to keep the team size small, and then you have to obsess about product market fit until you have it, and don't start to scale prematurely, which we did a little bit. Number 7, more people does not necessarily equal more output. In fact, the opposite is quite true. When we ended up cutting some people, we moved faster, which that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's a trap to think that you can just throw humans at problems. You can't. Number 8, the time to push like crazy is when you have cash in the bank. Go. If you wait to sprint till you're running out, it'll be too late. Yeah. We did a lot of stuff in 2017 that wasn't obsessing over the systemic problem of finding product market fit. It was things like one-on-ones for everybody in the company, and culture, offsites and team building stuff, and all these different infrastructure type things that a good company should have. But we had some systemic problems that we weren't addressing. And we ended up having to address them in 2018 because we didn't address them in 2017 when we had time and had money. Because we are doing all the things that a good company should do. Don't do that. Yeah, it's a trick. You don't get any gold stars for being a good company. You get gold stars for solving systemic problems. All right, number 9, similar. This is starting to sound repetitive. Number 9, the CEO needs to be obsessed with the core risk facing the business. Do not delegate that. Do not outsource that. Get in there and break some eggs. Step on toes. You have to be obsessed about the biggest risk that your company's facing, and you've got to be the one to drive it. Again, not because you're a genius, because if you're doing your job right, you're the least smart person in the company, right? Like that would be ideal, is that you hired everyone smarter than you. But the reason that you have to be in there is because you have the responsibility and you have the authority to clear things out and to put really smart people in. So jump in the middle and bring everyone along with you. Don't Yeah, don't be like, hey, can you take care of this really important issue? You need to help. You got to be in there. And I think I abdicated a little bit that year, and that was not good. All right, number 10. When your team gets bigger, you have to over-communicate constantly. You say, this is what I'm saying, and also this is what I'm not saying. That was new. When we really got to our biggest team size, I remember giving talks, and then afterwards people being like, why did you say that way? And I was like, oh my gosh, I never could have even interpreted that sentence in that direction. And I just realized that suddenly your words start to have a lot more power, and so you have to be careful about what you say. If you can't tell, I talk a lot. And so you have to be really careful about this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm not saying, and clarify and caveat a lot. You need to do that. What happened in 2018? Well, we raised a bridge round. That's right. We fired 3 team members, and I think we also lost 1 or 2 more who quit. That was a rougher one. We tested a bunch of business models, and we honed in on the core product. So what did we learn? Number 1, jump in the ocean whenever you see it. This one's really practical. I remember being real stressed and flying out to San Diego to pitch, and I went for a run before a big meeting. And when I was going for a run, I was like 30 feet from the ocean as I was running. And I'm like, man, ocean's beautiful. This is amazing. I was like, I need to jump in the ocean. And it was freezing cold. So I jumped in the ocean, swam for a little bit, and then I came back. And I was like, that needs to happen more. So we ended up in 2018 even moving out to Santa Monica for a while. And every time I went on a run, if I saw the ocean, I'd go and jump in the ocean. Life is short, and we need to take, it's called opportunistic seizure. You have to seize the opportunity, seize the moment that you can, and really soak it in, you know? So if you see the ocean, jump in it. It's invigorating, and it reminds you that the world's a lot bigger than your little company. All right, 2018, number 2. If your team's hearts aren't together, you have to stop everything and get them back together. I feel good about how we did this. That was when we let a bunch of people go. We call that the fall on the teams. We had in one day we fired 3 people, and that was hard because we were trying to elongate our runway and also, really focus in. And so when we did that, there was a lot of mistrust and doubt and questions. And so we showed up, and we all sat at one big table, and I think I asked something like, how's everybody doing? And we talked from 9 a.m. till 5 or 6 p.m. just talking about how's everybody doing. And we got to a spot where I apologized for things that I had done in the past year. They apologized for things. We affirmed each other in things, and we worked through for an entire day, like a 9-hour day. We got everyone's hearts aligned, and that was really important, and I'm really glad we did that. I was so proud of our team for doing that. I feel like it reversed the momentum emotionally of what was happening in the company. All right, number 3, Number 3, the executive team's personal life must be fully taken into account in strategic planning. Babies, moving, sickness, etc. This will have a massive effect on the business. We moved twice in 2018. Personally, we moved. We had a baby. We had a baby in 2018. Or was that? No, we had a baby in 2017. Aaron and Chris both had babies in 2018, or right around that time. And it was like, I feel like we didn't do a great job of planning for realistic life intervention. And the result of that is I greatly regret. I think specifically with Erin, we violated some boundaries in terms of needing her to come back or needing her to work on the business when she had just had a baby. It's her one son. And that was wrong, and it wasn't good. It was bad for the business, it was bad for her, it was bad for her son. So you have to make plans for life and be realistic about it. Don't make people be heroes. Be realistic and stick to the boundaries. I regret that. That was my bad. I feel bad about that. Number 4, you have to force your company to produce the growth chart to raise money. Intellectual honesty isn't enough to raise a round of funding. This is a big deal. We went free in the fall of 2018 in hopes of really getting a big pop and then pushing forward from getting that big pop into raising a big round of funding. And so we made it free. We were doing it. We were tracking along. And then the growth kind of petered out. And at that moment, I think what we were supposed to do is we should have bet everything and just spent a bunch of money, pushed like crazy, and forced it to be so. And we didn't do that. I feel like we were trying to be intellectually honest. Do we truly have a viral coefficient? Is this really going to grow itself? And if it did, that would have been great. But I think that when you're pitching and raising money, you're being compared with people who are just forcing things to be true. You have to make the chart be what you need it to be. And I think for those who are maybe more intellectually honest, who are like saying, well, is it there or is it not there? That won't work out. You have to make it happen. Yeah. All right. Number 5, never process your doubts with your team. That's what friends are for. I goofed up to 2018 on this one. We called it the whirlwind. And I came in and pretty much undressed the company's core core strategy in front of the team. And I was right. But the way I did it in front of everybody, and I was processing out loud, because I really was processing, it caused serious harm to the team's culture. That was a real bummer. And I apologized for that later, and I said I won't ever do that again. And I'm really glad that I didn't do that again afterwards, because that can be really damaging for people. So I'd say do that with a friend. Friends especially are good, because board members, you kind of have to keep a certain level of professional distance, but a friend is really good to help you process things like that. So do that, and don't process in front of the team. That's probably for a specific personality type of like external processors, that type of thing, who tend to do that. Okay, number 6, never text anything important to a VC. Do it in email where you can hit that undo button and back it off. This is probably my best professional mistake that I've made in terms of just like blatant, this was a goof. We were trying to raise money from a VC, and we had received a term sheet, and I had this term sheet, and I was trying to shop it, because we'd removed the no shop clause. So I was trying to shop it around to other people. And so I was like, hey, we got a term sheet in hand, do you want to put one in? And I was working real fast trying to move that along. And so I texted one VC saying, hey, here's where we're at right now. We have a term sheet in hand, and there's no shop clause, and so we're moving this thing. We're trying to move quick. And I sent it to the one who'd actually sent the term sheet already, not to the person who hadn't. And it was like, I essentially just revealed my cards of what I was doing. And my stomach just like dropped. I was in downtown San Francisco, and my reaction was like, ah! And then I ran. I just started running. I don't know what I was running from, but I just started running. I was like, no. And then of course, what did I Google? You Google the one thing you always Google when you send a stupid text, which is I was like, how do you take back a text? And you can't still. That would be a nice thing to solve, but you still can't take back a text. And oh my gosh, I just died 1,000 deaths. And I remember talking to my board member about it. He's like, Blake, things are never as bad as they seem they are in the moment. And they're also never as good as they seem they are in the moment. The answer is always somewhere in between. And that was really helpful perspective. And so we ended up playing it off, and it ended up not being a huge deal. But texting, it probably makes you look like a noob too. Like, don't text VCs. That's a bad idea. Oh man. My stomach, I feel it even just thinking about it. Okay, number 7, 2018. There's nothing like losing a child to put raising money in perspective. Yeah. This actually happened almost exactly a year ago. It was a year ago yesterday. We were pregnant with our 5th child, and I got a text at like 6 in the morning while I was in LA. And I had to go to a pitch in LA that day. And so I get a text, it was like 6 in the morning, I open it up, it was 9 o'clock here. And my wife says, hey, we're having complications with the baby. I think we're going to be losing the baby. And I never want to get those texts. So I put everything in my bag, and I drove straight to the airport. I texted VC and said, hey, I'm not going to be going to the pitch today. We got a family emergency. And I immediately flew back home. And I came home, and by the time I had gotten home, the baby was dead. And it was really it was really clarifying how little I was thinking about runway or about the business, about any of that stuff when I was flying home and had to spend 8 hours on a plane to get home to my wife who was losing a child. And there's a big difference between money problems and personal problems. And they're different categories. They're both problems, but they're different categories. And family problems and health problems are way bigger than money problems. And so it was so strange. So I took 4 days. It was Thursday morning, and I didn't go back to work until Monday. And I feel like we did a good job of kind of mourning, and we ended up having a little funeral, and we had a burial. And me, and at the time we have 4 kids, and still have 4 kids. We all kind of mourned together and said goodbye. And during that period, I got a text saying that the VC was in and they were investing. And it was so weird. I worked probably 5 minutes a day during those 4 days, and closed the round of funding, and I just didn't care because it just pales in comparison to the importance of these life and death things. And so I think that forever probably is going to shape me as an executive. But I don't know, just at the end of the day, this money thing, it's all a game. We're playing Monopoly. Yeah, I don't know. It just changed my values. Yeah. All right, number 8. Once you have a really great team, your job as a CEO is to give regular clarity. Quarterly, you need to set out, this is what we're doing and this is why we're going after it. And then 2, you need to stop talking and then let them drive toward that clear vision that you set. Don't get in the way. Don't micromanage. Don't tell them how to do it. If you have a good team, they can do it better than you can. So get out of their way. Number 9, never let an external party, whether it's an investor or a partner or anybody outside the company, be a blocker of an initiative. Don't wait for permission. Never wait. Act now. They can join or they cannot, but you're moving. Never wait for permission to start around the funding. Never wait for permission to start shopping around a partnership. I don't know if that happens to other companies. That happened to us. We were waiting for permission to start a round from an internal investor, and that was a major mistake. We should have just gone, and if they joined us, great, but if not, then at least you're in control of your own fate. Do not relinquish that to an external party, because they don't feel the same urgency that you feel. And then number 10, every person has limits. You either take a break or a break will take you. This was the year, as a man, this is the year that I found out that I am not invincible, that you have to take breaks. And we moved to Santa Monica for 2.5 months. We had rented our house on Airbnb something like 50 days that year. We had a newborn in the house. We had 4 kids. There was a major flood in our backyard. I got a serious stomach disease. I ended up rupturing my Achilles tendon. We lost 2 children that year in pregnancy. And we hit a wall. And I was like, oh, that's what 100% is. And it just totally halted us. And so good to know. I think it's healthy for us all to hit a wall. So now we can back off and maybe work at 80 as opposed to that full 100%. But that was the lesson I learned, is that you have to take breaks. Otherwise, breaks will take you. You will be stopped. And it's probably good to hit a wall one time, and then after that, to just maintain so you don't hit a wall like that again. Yeah. All right, here we go, 2019. That's the year that we're in right now. And I have 10 already. And it's like, what is this? September. All right, 2019. What happened in 2019? Well, we launched this massive social feature. That was amazing. We raised a bridge round of capital to fund the sale process of our company, and then we sold the company to a group of private investors led by my co-founder, Erin. And she's continuing to lead the company now with the team, and I'm very excited for the future of where that's going to be. So what did I learn in 2019? A lot. Some of these are seared. The end has a way of kind of searing lessons a lot. So here we go. Number 1, what did I learn? Don't communicate your backup plans with a team. It's plan A or bust. Have backup plans, but you don't have to communicate them with everybody. Because what happens is it almost loses your conviction that you're going after plan A. Don't talk about the backup plans too much, because I think it almost guarantees that you're going to go for the lowest backup plan, the backup that has no backup. I don't know why that is, but I think that's true for me. I don't know if that's true for everybody. Number 2, remote teams are awesome. It's great to work from home until the company hits trouble. And if there's any major trouble, then it's horrible. I don't know what to do about that, because it is really awesome when things are going well. Working remotely is amazing, but when things are not going well, you lose the ability to like relationally bring things together. You lose the ability to like say, hold on, we need to all get in the room, we need to solve this problem. And I'm conflicted because I like to be at home and I really like working at home, and I was telling everybody in February of this year that working from home is the best thing ever and that every company should do it. But there's something that it doesn't quite work, and it's really easy to leave the company when it's remote. So I'm sure that there's certainly some books written on this and some ways to get around it, but this is just something I learned. Number 3, selling a company requires a clear and disciplined process. Do not test the waters. Either do it or don't do it. The clarity of the process is what moves people along the best and gets to honest answers the best. So if you're murky and you're like, hey, would you be interested here? Like, it's kind of like raising money. You need a formal process of like lining up everybody and then moving them through the gates. And so if you do it one-off and like kind of tease or something like that, it's not going to get the result that you want. Number 4, in huge successful exits, the first money in is going to make the big bucks. Think like Uber. People who are the first investors in Uber made a killing. But in every other scenario that's not this massive success, the last money in gets it because they're at the top of the stack. And so that's just a good thing to know as an investor. I ended up investing in Cladwell. Actually, a bunch of us ended up investing in Cladwell personally in the last round because we saw like, whoa, this makes a lot of sense. That's what you should do. So you either want to be first money in on a massive success or last money in on a moderate success. Either of those will make money. Everything else in between is a bad idea. Number 5, if you want people to notice you and think you're important, be a startup CEO. But if you want to build wealth, be an investor. We are all playing a board game, and the name of that board game is capitalism, unless it changes at some point. But for now, it's capitalism. And the way you make money in capitalism, the best way is through assets, owning assets, investing in assets that will spin off money. So if you want to build wealth, you should be an investor. But if you want to take up space and feel important, you should be a startup CEO. And I think a lot, not all, but a lot of the venture community is really savvy investors who make a deal with young, ambitious people who want to take up space. Say, we'll give you fame, and in return, you'll give us money. Because you'll build an asset that will spin off cash for us. That's not always the case, and I don't think it's evil or wicked or weird, but I think it's kind of true that some of the benefits that you get from being a startup CEO are non-monetary. They make you feel important, feel good, and yeah, that kind of stuff. But it doesn't build wealth, and so be aware of that and think that through. Personally, I liked running Cladwell, and I'm really glad that I did it. But in the future, I want to try to be a little bit smarter about building assets as opposed to just purely jobs, if that makes sense. And I think there's a way to do both in startups. Number 6, adding lawyers in the mix makes things feel adversarial. It takes a lot to resist that. It's just true. When you have a lawyer on two sides, suddenly there's distance. There's relational distance. There's actually communication distance. You can't communicate as directly, and that makes things feel adversarial. And it's a bummer, and it's icky, and it takes a huge amount of work to resist that from happening. But it's a fact. Number 7, don't let your team know that you're selling the company. I've heard that wisdom before. I violated that wisdom, and I communicated to everybody exactly what we were doing and why we were doing it. And the result of that, I think, was a lack of excitement about the future because it was ambivalent. It was ambiguous what the future was going to be. For the first time, there wasn't a clear vision. It was like the clear vision is we're going to sell a company, and it could be somebody like this or like this or like this. And so you could feel just the energy and momentum drop. And I don't like the idea of keeping secrets, especially from a small team. But this is one that I think you have to do it in order to maintain a good morale and good company culture. And I think it's actually best for them that you do that. It's a weird lesson, but that's my conclusion from that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my conclusion. All right. Number 8, time is a good one. This is from Alan Roth, my board member. Time can accomplish things that emails, phone calls, leverage, and pressure can't accomplish. Let time do its job. Time has a job, and it has jobs that it can do, especially when you're in a negotiation. And when you're working through contracts, sometimes giving something time actually will work in that person. And I'm impatient a little bit, and so I don't like letting time do work. I'm like, I'll do that work instead. But there's certain things that you can't do as well as time can. That was a new learning, and it's a big deal. You can't force people to move faster all the time. Sometimes you just have to let things work out. All right, number 9. This is important. Examine your investors' values. Their percent ownership of your company will inevitably become that percent representation of your values. Let me say that again. So like, here's your list of values. Here's your investors' list of values. The bigger chunk they own of your company, that's how many of their values will now become your values. It just is true. Because with ownership comes the responsibility and the values that come with it. So interview for that when you're raising money. Find out what people value about. And investors have a wide variety of values, and that's not good, bad, or indifferent. They just have a wide variety. Some people are just purely IRR, just return focused, right? And I'll use leverage, I'll use whatever I need to in order to get the return. Other people are more like long-term focused. They're like, I care about this relationship, and I'm going to be investing in this company, and the next company, and the next company with you for a long time. So I'm gonna maybe care less about optimizing this deal and more about the long-term relationship. And this is a different value set, and you need to know that, because that ends up becoming your value set, because you and that person are kind of becoming one because you're sharing the company. So really check that out. Okay, this is it. Number 10 or number 70. 70 lessons. We did it. Number 10. No matter who you are, here is a fact for you. You will be somewhere with someone when your relationship with your company ends. Invest in that somewhere and invest in that someone now. You will not regret it. This is just a fact. You are not going to work at your company for the rest of your life. Whether you own it, whether you're working for it, whatever. Nobody works, unless you die suddenly in some tragedy, you're going to leave the company at some point. And when you leave, you're going to be somewhere. And you're going to be with someone. It might be your roommate, it might be your family, it might be your spouse, but you're going to be with someone in the room. And so it's important that you invest in that someone. And because that someone is probably the most important person in your life. And I feel like I feel good that I feel like I did that. I have 4 children and number 5 on the way. I have an amazing wife. I have incredible siblings and in-laws in town. I have a big life here at my address here in northern Kentucky, and I feel like despite the stress and all the craziness and a lot of long hours, a lot of travel, I feel like I've got these people that I love, and I know that they love me. And so when my relationship with the company ended a month ago, my life didn't fall apart. In fact, my life was greatly bettered by it. I want that to be true for you too. Because there's a great quote from Les Miserables where Jean Valjean says at the end of his life, says, to love another person is to see the face of God. And what that means to me is that like these relationships, loving other human beings is what it's all about in the end. And so that perspective is really important. It's one of my values. And I want to make sure that whoever I work with in the future and whatever I do, that thing remains true. So that's it. I hope this was helpful to you. If not, it was at least therapeutic for me. I felt like it was one of those things you just kind of had to get out. So yeah, thanks for listening to this. If you ever want to talk about what's next, I'm kind of open to possibilities. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do yet. And so I'm starting to chat with people. I'd be happy to chat with you. And yeah, if I can be helpful with your startup in some way, I'd love to even just meet for coffee or something like that, because it's a tough road and we need to have friends along the way. So thanks. See you later.